Hello, everyone. John 17:5, Glory Hour. Now, Father, glorify me together with yourself with the glory which I had with you before the world was. John 17:5, New American Standard. I believe that's the 1995 version. Relatively typical translation that you see in Bibles. And here's a interlinear translation of that verse, kind of a simplistic interlinear translation. You have to be careful with interlinears if you're not aware of this. They don't tell you everything you need to know because they can't. Some interlinears show the cases and tenses of the verbs, etc., all that. And you can go and check that stuff out also. The thing is, you have to go well beyond English words you see in interlinear. That's true for any verse. And I feel I have to say this because over the years, I've seen where people kind of run amok with interlinears and, Strong's definitions and this sort of thing. So one of the things, if you are talking to people about the Greek grammar of this verse, is the articular infinitive will be one of the big things I want to talk about. So before we get to the main topic of this video, I just want to show you something real quick here. Just so you're aware of it. Here's a book published in 2006. I'm not saying you should run out and buy this book. I haven't read this book, and I'm not suggesting you run out and get this book. That's not the point. The author is a Southern Baptist who teaches at Boyce College in Louisville, Kentucky. Here's something I pulled off the internet, and I have to apologize. I don't remember where I got this. I forgot to note it. This kind of information is not hard to find if you just Google it. So I just want to read you a couple of things here. Having studied under Dan Wallace at Dallas Seminary, Burke, the author of this book, completed this work under the careful supervision of Tom Schreiner. There is something of a debate in grammatical circles. Burke shows that the use of the article with infinitives has been overestimated when one considers its semantic value, and underestimated when one considers its structural meaning. In other words, what this is about, this book, is how do articular infinitives really work in New Testament Greek? I found this on Amazon next to the book that's being sold on Amazon. Many New Testament scholars still operate under the mistaken notion that all of the problems of New Testament Greek grammar were worked out in the 19th century, the 1800s. This false assumption arises from an ignorance, listen to what he's saying, ignorance among scholars, from an ignorance of developments in the field of modern linguistics. In focusing on one significant aspect of grammar, the semantic and/or syntactic value of the articular infinitive, Burke undertakes to move beyond the standard New Testament grammar books. His question is, what does the article contribute to the total linguistic meaning of the infinitive in the Greek of the New Testament. Burke argues that the article with the infinitive is different from the article with other kinds of words. I don't know why that would be a big surprise. With other kinds of words, the article encodes ideas such as definiteness, substantivization, and anaphora. The article with the infinitive, however, does not denote ideas such as these. With the infinitive, the article is a function marker that signifies a grammatical structural relation that may not otherwise be apparent. So the point here is not that this guy has his articular infinitives all figured out or whether he is right or wrong about this or that. Greek grammar scholars are debating this issue among themselves. So it's not a good idea to make rash or naive assumptions about articular infinitives for yourself here or anywhere else. Notice this, though. Many New Testament scholars still operate under the mistaken notion. This false assumption arises from an ignorance. This is referring to scholars concerning Greek grammar. That's a pretty bold statement. Ignorant scholars? Interesting. Very interesting. With the infinitive, the article is a function marker. I'm not exactly sure what he means by that because I haven't read the book. But on the face of it, it sounds to me like he's exactly right. So we're not going to get into the grammar weeds in this video. I just wanted to make you aware of that. When anyone, scholars or otherwise, are in the process of interpreting a verse, whether they're reading it in English or in Greek, what is one of the first things they should do, other than stare at the Greek grammar? Check the context. The contextual facts. Yes, even if you're just reading the Greek text, you need to do that. Translations aren't just about, unplugging a Greek word and plugging back in an equivalent English word. It doesn't work that way. You have to actually try to interpret what the author intended. Sometimes the contextual facts tell us or clarify for us what an author really intends to say. And what is often disregarded is that contextual facts can also tell us what a text could not possibly mean. That's very important. So the topic of this particular video concerns those contextual facts which are pertinent for an appropriate interpretation of John's intentions at John 17:5. Rome was not built in a day. One thing at a time, Billy, one thing at a time. Let's start here. John 17:5. We're back to that same translation we started with. And I've highlighted the word world, Greek cosmos. What do people think when they see this word? So get in your mind what most people think when they see the word world at John 17:5. You'll have a pretty good idea. What does John intend, though? What does John intend with this word? That's the only thing that matters. It's not what you imagine, it's what John intended. Look at verse 18, for example. Just as you sent me into the world. So what are Trinitarians thinking when they see the word world in both of these verses? more or less thinking the same thing, aren't they? Now what? Now what does world mean? You see what people were thinking before we got here? It's not going to work anymore, is it? Where are the disciples? Somewhere in outer space? Or in eternity, and they have to be sent into the world like Jesus was? You see? That concept of the word world isn't going to work anymore in verse 18, is it? So it's not a good idea just to kind of imagine what John means by the word, nor, is it a good idea just to say, well, the word world can mean a bunch of different things, and I get to cherry pick which one I like. That's irrelevant. What did John intend? Does world mean something different in verse 18 now than you previously thought? Before I put the last half of the verse there, I think you know what we can expect from some people at this point, right? Fix it again in your mind. What do people think when they see this word? What are they thinking? Verse 11, I am no longer in the world. How does that work now? How does that fit? Now what? Now what? Again, what do people think when they see this word? World. At John 17:5. I am no longer in the world. So when did he leave? If that's what you think when you see the word world, when you get to verse 11, I guess you're going to have to ask yourself when he left. Right? What do people think when they see this word, world? If he is no longer in the world, where is he? What do people think when they see the word world? Here's another thing to think about. Does verse 4 inform verse 11 and or vice versa? Take a good hard look at that. And think about what Jesus says in verse 18. What was he sent into the world for? Verse 4. To finish the works of the Father which he gave Jesus to do. Jesus talks about it all over the place in the Gospel of John. That's why the disciples were sent into the world, to do the works of God. So think about how verse 4 might be informing you of verse 11, and verse 11 might be informing you of verse 4. If he's sent into the world, or the disciples are sent into the world even, and he's finished now what he was sent into the world for, maybe that'll crack it open the door for you to understand what he's saying in verse 11. Why was Jesus sent into the world? Verse 4. Now he's finished. In this same prayer, he says the disciples are not of the world, just as he is not of this world, and that he sends them into the world, just as he was sent into the world. There's so much information there in John 17 about this matter. You might want to think this over carefully. Here's another thing, another contextual thing. I glorified you. What's he talking about? The work which you have given me to do. You think those words in John 17:5 might be referring to the same thing? The glory which I had alongside you might be referring back to what he's talking about in verse 4. You think, maybe? Here's yet another thing. So I left the Greek word here in verse 5, para. What's that mean? Well, that means like beside, alongside. The Father was para, the Son, during Jesus' ministry, when he was doing the works of his Father. And that is also why Jesus said he was not alone, but his Father was with him, and that it was the Father abiding in him, in fact, doing the works. He was para, the Father, and the Father was para, Jesus. A man attested to you by God, with miracles and wonders and signs, which God did through him. Same idea. Look at this. I glorified you, the glory which I had para you before. Take a good hard look at that. Notice the contrast also between verse 4 and 5. I glorified you. Now you, Father, glorify me. That's important to see as well. And in verse 1, Father, the hour has come, glorify your Son. Don't miss that either. What is the significance of those words? The hour has come. Glorify your Son. Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son. Verse 5, now, Father, you glorify me. It's glory hour. What is he talking about? In the Gospel of John, Jesus refers to various future events as an hour to come, such as an hour when believers will worship in spirit, or an hour when the dead shall be resurrected, and so on. What we want to know is what hour specifically Jesus has in mind here in verse 1. Does John tell us? Does he inform us? Oh yeah, big time. Starting with the immediately preceding context. Behold, an hour is coming and has come, for you to be scattered, each to his own, and to leave me alone, and yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. There, he says it right there. What hour is this at John 16:32? You should be able to figure it out. It's pretty plain. What hour would that be? Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. The hour. The hour has come. John 12:23, and Jesus answered them, saying, the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. What's that about then? Glory hour. This doesn't seem to be two different things, does it? John 17 and John 12. What is this hour which Jesus is talking about? This hour of glorification he is talking about in John 12. What's he talking about? Well, we just got to keep reading. The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Verse 27, now my soul has become troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? But for this purpose I came to this hour. Should be getting pretty clear here. What is the hour in question when the Son of Man will be glorified? The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. What's he talking about? Well, what does it say? This hour is his death. Look at verse 27. What would he otherwise be saved from? The cross, death, suffering. But for this purpose I came to this hour. Is Jesus talking about being saved from the glorifications which Trinitarians have in mind at John 17:5? To be saved from the glorification he had before the creation of the world? See the problem here? Verse 32, and I, if I am lifted up from the earth, I will draw all to myself. But he was saying this to indicate the kind of death by which he was about to die. The hour has come. Glorify your Son. It's his death. This is the hour in question. You see the same sort of thing in other ways in John? Notice verse 28. John 12:28. Father, glorify your name. And John 21:19. Now this he said, signifying by what kind of death he, Peter, would glorify God. By death. So compare 17:1 and 12:28. The hour has come, glorify your Son, that the Son may glorify you. John 12:28, Father, glorify your name. Same thing. The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Father, glorify your name. The Father is going to be glorified. And again, so they were seeking to seize him, and no man laid his hand on him. Why? Because his hour had not yet come. See, laying hands on him, that's what happened when they arrested him, put him on trial, and killed him. His death, his glory hour. Glory hour. So what is the hour in question when Jesus will be glorified? Is John telling us? Yeah, he is. Glory hour is his death on the cross. John made that beyond clear. So what are the implications? What then is this glorification in verse 5? What has John shown us? Is his glorification in terms of his death something Jesus had before creation? And now he wants it back? He wants his crucifixion back, or his death back he had before creation? His suffering back that he had before creation? That's not going to make any sense. The contextual facts plainly show us, at the very least, that something seems to be very wrong with this translation of John 17:5. It doesn't square with everything else. There's something wrong here. The implications are enormous. Blindness toward the contextual facts is not an option. How about we just ignore those contextual facts? You think that's a good idea? So before you start obsessing over Greek grammar and articular infinitives and accusatives and such, and getting yourself into trouble, you just might want to chew on the contextual facts for a bit. Interpreting a text and willfully ignoring the contextual facts pertinent to that text is quite simply a very, very bad idea. Very bad idea. John does not leave us to our imaginations. at John 17:1, John 17:5. In fact, he heavily informs us what is being talked about there. The typical interpretation and subsequent translation of this verse, which people see in their Bibles, completely disregards the contextual facts. It doesn't work. It's wrong. So now you can proceed to step 2. Chew on that a bit. That's enough to digest for now.